It can feel like the ground is shifting almost daily in Washington, right?
Oh, definitely. So much news, so many changes happening.
And for anyone trying to stay informed, well, it can be tough. Not just knowing what's up, but what it all means.
Uh-huh. Finding the signal and the noise.
Exactly. And that's what we try to do here on the Deep Dive. You said it's your sources this time. It's a pretty detailed news report. And we dig in.
We pull out the key insights, try to give you a clearer view of the bigger picture.
So today we're focusing on some pretty significant recent developments within the Trump administration.
That's right. Our source details the departure of a key National Security Council figure, raises some, let's say, important questions about the economy's direction.
And it highlights a pretty noticeable intensification of immigration enforcement policies.
Yeah.
So our goal, our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to look past the individual headlines, explore the connections between these things, the NSC shakeup, those economic headwinds, the immigration shift.
What might it all signal, taken together? Where's the administration heading?
Right. Okay, let's get into it, starting with the big one. Michael Waltz. He's out as National Security Advisor.
Yeah, the report we looked at suggests his removal came down to basically two main things.
Go.
First, a high-level security slip-up involving a signal messaging group. And second, just a growing feeling inside the administration that his handling of foreign policy wasn't quite hitting the mark.
Okay, that signal incident sounds, well, almost hard to believe.
It does.
A journalist accidentally put into a confidential briefing among Pentagon and Intel officials.
About Middle East tensions, specifically the Houthi militants in Yemen, no less.
Wow, you can immediately see how that would set off alarm bells.
Absolutely. And what the report highlights is the intensity of the reaction. President Trump's reported fury.
Calling it an unforced error, that really tells you something.
It really does. It underlines the premium being placed on, well, locking down information security and just sound judgment.
So maybe avoiding those kinds of mistakes is becoming a bigger focus. Perhaps a shift from the first term's more instinct-driven stuff.
It could signal that, yeah. Maybe more process-oriented, though. You know, loyalty is clearly still paramount.
So this wasn't just a minor blip, a bit of embarrassment. The report suggests it's led to a real tightening of standards.
It seems so.
Competence, demonstrated competence, now maybe ranking even higher, right alongside that loyalty factor.
I think that's a really crucial point the report brings out, especially when you think about the wider context.
Right, things are pretty unstable globally.
Exactly. The Red Sea situation, Eastern Europe. A compromise briefing like that, it could have genuinely serious consequences for planning.
So Waltz leaving might reflect a desire for tighter control, fewer mistakes in executing foreign policy.
It certainly seems plausible, a less error-prone approach.
Okay, so that's a major change in national security leadership.
Yeah.
Then the report pivots to the economy.
Yeah, and some pretty concerning news there.
A second straight quarter where the U.S. economy shrank.
That definitely gets your attention. The report mentioned declines in key things, like consumer spending, manufacturing output.
Raises those recession worries, doesn't it?
It does. And the administration's reaction was, well, immediate.
Right. President Trump gave a speech, blamed the previous administration.
Standard playbook, perhaps. But he also announced plans for new investments to create jobs.
But, and this stood out to me in the report, there were basically no specifics, were there?
None at all. No companies named. No clear timeline.
It feels less like a concrete strategy reveal and more like managing the story, right? Getting out ahead of the bad news.
That's a very sharp observation. They're clearly trying to control the narrative around this negative economic data.
This lack of detail on the job promises. It's a tactic we've seen before, hasn't it?
Oh, sure. Buys time, lets them see how the announcement lands before they commit to actual plans.
So it definitely raises questions about what the actual economic strategy is beyond the rhetoric.
Big questions, yeah.
Okay, shifting gears one more time. From foreign policy shifts and economic spin, the report digs into immigration.
And specifically, a really large-scale enforcement operation down in Florida.
Over 1,100 people detained in just 6 days back in April.
That's a significant number. And the focus seems consistent with their stated priorities.
Right. The report mentioned undocumented immigrants who already had deportation orders and people with criminal records.
Exactly. But what's maybe more noteworthy, or at least caught my eye, was the cooperation between different agencies.
Yeah, that was interesting. It wasn't just ICE, was it?
No, ICE working with the Florida Department of Corrections.
Okay.
And even the state's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
The Fish and Wildlife. That definitely makes you pause and ask about, well, jurisdiction and scope.
It really does. And the report includes a quote from a legal expert, Marisol Rodriguez at the American Immigration Council,
Uh-huh.
who points out exactly that. This blurring of lines could lead to some serious legal, maybe even constitutional challenges later on.
Using state resources like that, it could be a deliberate strategy, but one that raises concerns about federal versus state roles.
That's the worry for advocacy groups, certainly. But the administration, they're framing it very differently
Oh, yeah. The report says they called it highly efficient and replicable.
and promised more sweeps like it in the future.
So they're clearly tying this intensified enforcement directly to their broader themes: law and order, national security.
That connection seems absolutely central to their messaging on this. Frame it that way. Aim to resonate with their base, maybe even win broader support for these kinds of actions.
The report also touches on President Trump's upcoming schedule. Some public appearances planned.
Right. The National Day of Prayer event and also a commencement speech at the University of Alabama.
Strategically important, you'd think.
Oh, absolutely. The prayer event is a direct line to evangelical voters, a really crucial support block.
And Alabama.
Well, that's strong territory. A chance to energize the base, maybe road test some messages in a friendly environment.
But even there, the report mentions planned protests.
Yes, specifically linked to immigration policies, comments on civil rights. It shows that even in supportive areas, there's pushback.
These kinds of controlled events, the public appearances, they seem like a key part of their whole communication strategy, don't they? Managing the narrative.
Precisely. Especially if, as the report suggests, based on some polling, public confidence might be slipping a bit on how they're handling things, both foreign and domestic.
So these events offer a chance to speak directly, try to shape perceptions in a, well, controlled setting.
Exactly. Counter the negative noise.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What's the overall picture emerging from this report? It feels like an administration dealing with some pretty significant pressures early in this second term.
I think the report paints a picture of an administration definitely navigating challenges, maybe a period of transition.
Yeah.
The NSC shakeup suggests an effort to tighten control, maybe adjust strategy.
Then the economic news forces a quick messaging response, even if it's a bit thin on detail for now.
Right. And the big immigration operations signals they're doubling down on a core policy area, firm commitment there.
And with those potential dips in public confidence mentioned, the appointment of the next national security advisor feels really key.
Hugely important. The report sort of hints at this, that choice will be a major signal.
A signal of what? Moderation or...
Or doubling down on a more hardline approach. That quote from the senior GOP strategist in the report really stuck with me.
Which one was that?
Trump's not just looking for loyalty anymore. He's looking for people who won't make mistakes.
That says a lot, doesn't it? About the internal pressure, the lessons they think they've learned recently.
It really does.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive then, we've seen major personnel changes, seemingly driven by that security failure.
A very clear, very immediate attempt to shape the story around bad economic news.
And a decisive ramp-up in immigration enforcement.
Yeah, these pieces, they're interconnected, and they give us a snapshot, really, of a presidency grappling with some significant forces both inside and out in these early stages.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given these early moves we've discussed, the focus on avoiding errors, the economic messaging, the push on immigration, what do you think the longer-term consequences might be, both here at home and around the world?
And which of these areas, these pressure points, do you expect will have the biggest impact in the coming months? A lot to watch, that's for sure.